What's up everyone, it's Brace from LangChain, and today I'm excited to show off the social media agent. I'm going to show you how it works, we're going to use it, and then we're going to walk through setting it up with our quick start guide. So, what is the social media agent? This agent can take in a URL to some content. That could be a blog post, a Twitter link, a YouTube video, or anything else which contains some sort of content you want to write a tweet on. It's going to then scrape the contents of that URL. After that, it's going to generate a marketing report. This takes in the scraped contents of the URL and it formats it into a nice clean report, extracting all of the relevant details. It then finds and validates all of the images, so it's going to extract all the images on the page which you sent in. It's also going to take a screenshot of that, or for YouTube videos, it's going to get the thumbnail. And then finally, it's going to generate a Twitter and LinkedIn post using the images and the marketing report. And once it's done that, it's going to interrupt the graph, pause, and it's going to wait for your feedback. Your feedback can be accepting or submitting it, and then it'll go and schedule that post to be sent out at a later date. And that way you can send in 50 links, have it generate 50 tweets and LinkedIn posts, approve and schedule them all on your Saturday, and then over the course of the next 2 or 3 weeks, it's going to post them all for you without you having to do any more work. So now that we've seen how it works, let's actually use the social media agent to schedule a post. So to use the social media agent and other ambient agents, we have an Agent Inbox website which you can connect any graph to. So I'm at the Agent Inbox website, I'm using my local graph, and I click on the first link and we see the schedule post. This is the post that it was generated. It generated from this link. These bullet points contain all of the links it found, and then this is the original URL which was used to generate this. And we can see it generated this post. Saved 10 plus hours weekly, and this is just a blog post on one of our partners with LangChain. It also took a screenshot of the blog post and extracted all of the images and GIFs and whatever other content that was found on that page. So let's say I like this post and I want to use this image. I'll paste the image in and I'll update the date to post 2 minutes from now just so we can see it scheduled right away. So as you can see, I've scheduled it for 2:46, which is 1 minute from now. I'm then going to submit this. It's going to run, and it successfully scheduled that post. So in 1 minute, we'll be able to go to my LinkedIn and Twitter pages, refresh them, and we'll see it will have posted that post with the image. All right, it's 2:46. Let's go to my Twitter. We'll hit refresh, and then if we scroll down, we can see that 13 seconds ago, the tweet which we had just scheduled was posted. If we go to my LinkedIn, we can refresh on all of my posts, and we can see it was also posted just now on my LinkedIn with the image. So that's how you use this social media agent. Now let's go through the quick start guide and get it set up so that you can use this for your own tweets and your own accounts running locally on your machine. So in this guide, we're going to be following the quick start, which is the easiest way to get up and running. However, it does not include all of the features that the social media agent can use, like the images that we saw, and then also scraping content like from GitHub pages or YouTube videos. If you want to set it up so you can access all the features, you're going to have to follow the full setup guide, which is down below. But for the purpose of this video, we're going to use the quick start, and that will allow us to scrape from general content using Firecrawl, authenticate with our LinkedIn and Twitter using Arcade, and then also post to LinkedIn and Twitter using Arcade, and then use the Anthropic LLM to generate these marketing reports and posts. Of course, you need a Langsmith account, a Langsmith API key for running the LangGraph server locally, and then also, optionally, you can use it in your environment for best-in-class tracing and observability. So the first step is going to be to clone the repository. So I'm going to copy this URL and then navigate back to my terminal to clone it. So I'm going to hit git clone. Once that's done, I'm going to navigate into the social media agent repo and install my dependencies via yarn install. While that's running, we can open it up, and we're going to want to copy the .in.quickstart.example file. This is going to contain all of the required environment variables for running the quick start. So I'm going to copy this and then rename it .env. And now we can set our different fields. So of course, LangChain API key and LangChain tracing true if you want to trace all of the runs in this project. Your Anthropic API key for LLM generations. Firecrawl for web scraping. This is how we're going to be able to actually extract data from, say, the blog post or any other URL you input to it. And then your Arcade API key. Make sure use Arcade auth is true. And this is how we're going to be able to authenticate with your Twitter and LinkedIn account or LinkedIn account so that we can post to those for you. And then this needs to be set to true so that it uses your Arcade API key. In the full setup guide, you can use your own Twitter and LinkedIn developer accounts to read and post. So that's why this is there. And then also we have this post to LinkedIn organization environment variable. Since LinkedIn does not have a company account login, and instead they're just tied to your personal accounts, if you want to post to your personal or company account tied to your personal account, you'll need to set this to true. In my case, I'm just going to be posting to my personal account, so I'll have it at false. And then finally, the LinkedIn and Twitter user ID, which you'll want to use to log in. These can also be set as configurable fields, but since they're not going to be changing for me, I'll set them here. In this case, it would be, say, my Twitter username and the email I used to log into LinkedIn. And then that's how Arcade knows what account you want to use to actually post once you've authenticated using the link that they'll send, which we'll get into in just a second. So set those fields, and then we can go on to the next step. So after setting our environment variables, we're now going to want to install the LangGraph CLI, and this is how we're going to be able to run the LangGraph server locally on our machine. So we're going to copy this command, go back to our terminal, and paste in pip install LangGraph CLI. Once this is done, we can run the langgraph -- version command to verify that it is installed and we're on the latest version, so that looks correct. And now we're going to want to make sure your Docker is running. You can check that via docker ps. So run docker ps, and we can see I have no containers currently running. However, it did succeed in that command, so that we know Docker is running. After that, we're going to want to run the yarn langgraph up command. What this is going to do is it's going to spin up the langgraph server. It's just wrapping the langgraph CLI command. And then you want to make sure you have your LangChain API key in your terminal environment so that the langgraph up command can access it, or you can just set it in line when you call that command. And that's because in order to run the LangGraph server in development, you still need a Langsmith API key. You can say LangChain or Langsmith when you're defining it. And this can be an API key from the free tier, so you don't need to pay for Langsmith to do this. I already have it exposed to my environment, so I'm going to copy this and run the command. If it's the first time you're running this command, it's going to take a little while. So while this is running, we can go and we can set up the agent inbox for you so that you can access your interrupted social media posts locally. To do that, you're going to want to navigate to dev.agentinbox.ai. Once you're here, you should have no inboxes already set, so it's going to pop up this asking you to add a new inbox. And to do this, we're going to set our graph ID, which in our case is generate post. This is just the name of the graph that our agent is running on and which we'll be interrupting from. So generate post. Then the deployment URL, since we're running it locally, we have it set to running on port 54367. So we can set http://localhost 54367, and then we can give it an optional name. This is just going to be how it's named in the sidebar. We'll call it gen post local. Once I hit submit, we can see that I have some already set that I ran in previous versions when I ran the CLI. And that makes it sound like, yep, our server is up and running. So once your server is running, you'll see this output. And now this is running, we can actually go and generate a demo post. We can generate the one that we saw in the beginning of the video. We'll see it interrupt. However, it should first interrupt and ask us to authenticate our graph because we have not yet authenticated with Arcade. And that's going to give us a Twitter and LinkedIn URL to log in with our accounts that Arcade will be able to post on our behalf for us. Once you do this the first time, it's not going to interrupt again, and you'll be able to just continue straight to generating and scheduling your posts. But of course, the first time you run the graph, you're going to need to authenticate with Arcade. So we have a pre-built script in the social media agent repo, which you can use to generate these posts. Let's take a look at it. So open up the repo, navigate to the scripts directory, and then open up the generate demo post file here. What this is going to do is it's going to call the LangGraph client using the LangGraph API URL environment variable, or falling back to the local path here if you're running it locally. It's going to create a new thread for our run and then call the generate post graph, passing in a link. In our case, I have it defaulting to this LangChain blog, but you can update it to be any sort of post you want to generate, any sort of link you want to generate a post on. And then we pass in some configurable fields. So as you saw, we already set the Twitter user and LinkedIn user ID in our environment, but these can be passed via the configurable fields, same with the posting to LinkedIn org, and then also this text-only mode. We need to set this to true because we're running in the quick start, which does not have access to like uploading images to Supabase. We have to take screenshots, or using the Google Vertex API to generate summaries from YouTube videos. So since we're just using the quick start, we need to set text only to true, and that's going to ensure that it only generates text. It doesn't try and do anything with images or the more advanced things which you would get if you follow the full setup guide. So once we're happy with this, we're going to want to go back to our client, and we're going to run yarn generate post. hit this, and it's going to say done. So this is now going to be kicking off a new run in the background. And then once you've, of course, authenticated your graph, it'll run the entire thing, and it should take between 30 seconds and 1 minute. But since we have not yet authenticated with Arcade yet, we should be able to open up our agent inbox and see an item which says, hey, you need to authenticate your Twitter and LinkedIn accounts. So I'm back in my agent inbox. I'm going to refresh, and we can see the most recent item from today is authorized social media accounts. When I open this up, we can see that I have not yet authorized with LinkedIn, so it's going to, I have not yet authorized with Twitter, but I have authorized with LinkedIn. So all there is a LinkedIn link, a Twitter link here. I can click on this, log in with my Twitter account, and then the graph will continue, generate the post, and then we can approve, edit, and do more with it to have to be scheduled. So I'm going to authorize with my Twitter real quick. Great, so I've authorized with my Twitter account. I can close this and then simply hit accept. What this is going to do is it's going to now continue on with the rest of the graph, verifying the content URL is relevant to my use case, generating a marketing report, and then generating the post and interrupting. All of the prompts which we use for this are configurable, and they're outlined in the README of the Social Media Agent repo. So if you want to customize this for your company or your own personal use case, you should modify those prompts to give some more context into what you want the post to be about. We also provide a handful of default tweets to use as few-shotty examples. Those are just from different AI influencers and people on Twitter who made some tweets, and I thought they would be good examples to include when generating them. So it's running the condensed post node right here, and we're going to get into exactly how the graph works and all of that after this, but now let's show off all the different actions we can take once it's interrupted. So we can see that the tweet is pretty similar to the one from before, and that makes sense because we ran the exact same graph. It, of course, did not generate any images, and that's expected because we're using text-only mode. And then we have some instructions down here. So there are a few different actions which can be taken. Edit. If the post is edited and submitted, it will be scheduled for Twitter/LinkedIn, whatever you've set. So I can simply edit the post here, hit submit, and it will use that edited post. We can also respond in this field down here. So if a response is sent, it will be sent to a router, which can be routed to either, one, a node which can be used to rewrite the post. So I can say something like add more emojis or make it more formal or so on. Our LLM will classify that as you wanting to edit the post, and it's going to edit that and then reinterrupt. Or you can have it update the scheduled date. So right now it has a pretty simple algorithm that just tries to find like the nearest Saturday and then sometime in PST, and that's the default date it suggests for scheduling. But you can, of course, edit this to be any date you want, or you can respond with something like make it for Friday at 4 p.m. and it will edit it to be that. We also have some special priorities reserved for scheduling posts. These are P1, P2, and P3. So if I say P1, then once I hit submit, it's going to look in the LangGraph store where we store all of the posts which have already been scheduled. And it's going to look for the nearest Saturday or Sunday between 8 and 10 a.m. PST, so that's 8, 9, and 10 a.m., which is not taken. So let's say I have 3 posts scheduled for P1. Those are going to take up the 8, 9, and 10 a.m. slots on Saturday. So if I set P1 for this post, it's going to select 8 a.m. on Sunday. And you can use these priority levels to not have to worry about the exact date and time you want to schedule your post at, and instead just say P1, P2, or P3. It'll schedule a post and save that time so you do not have any posts scheduled for that time, so you don't have any conflicting posts, and you don't have to worry about the time and date at all. So image is not supported. And then finally down here, we can see the actual marketing report that was generated based on the page content. If you want to get some more insights into exactly how this post was generated, you can read that report, but that's always going to be included. So let's try some things out. We can also, if we fail to use a valid response, then our graph will let us know. So if I say something like, hi, how are you? And submit that, that is of course not asking to edit the post or schedule. So it's going to classify that as an unknown/invalid response. And then it's going to give us some more instructions saying, please respond with a valid response. So I can say, set the schedule date to P2. It's going to update this, and it's going to set this to be P2. So it finished, and it has P2. And note that it does not have the exact date in here yet, because that is only found after you've submitted it, and it knows that you're done, you've selected that priority level, and it's then going to find the priority level, the nearest date for that priority level, and save it. So you know it'll be within that date and time range, but you do not get to see the actual date here, because let's say you say P2, it gives you a date, then you go out and submit another one for P2, and then submit this repeat to, it's going to have two conflicting times. So that this way it only actually gets and saves that date and time after you've submitted it. I can also say something like add more emojis, hit submit, and it's going to add more emojis to my post. So it finished, and we can see it added a lot more emojis. I like it. And now, just for the purpose of this video, I'm going to edit the date to be, of course, 2 minutes from now so that we can submit it and see it actually posted in real time. Alright, so I've set it to be 2 minutes from now. I'm going to hit submit. And we can see my response was submitted successfully. So now in 2 minutes, we'll go back and we'll check my social media pages and we'll see that it's posted. So now we refresh my LinkedIn page and we'll see that the most recent post is the post that we just scheduled. So now that we've seen how the social media agent works and how you can set it up locally, let's jump into exactly how it's built under the hood. We're going to examine the graph and talk about all the different nodes and what they do. So as you can see here, I have my graph open in LangSmith Studio, LangGraph Studio, and the very first node that gets called is the auth socials pass-through. And this is for the main generate post node. What this does is it takes your user ID from Twitter and LinkedIn, it sends them to Arcade, and it just checks to make sure that both are authorized and you have the required permissions to use them. If they're not, then it interrupts with the authorize interrupt we saw before, and it says, hey, here's an authorization URL, please use this to authorize your account. Once that's done, it goes to the verify link subgraph. This contains a few different nodes for different types of URLs. We have one for tweets, YouTube content, general content, and GitHub content. For the advanced setup, you'll be able to use GitHub, YouTube, and tweets, but for the basic setup, it's just going to use the general content node because this uses Firecrawl to scrape. But we have different nodes for GitHub, YouTube, and Twitter, and that's because for GitHub links, we want to actually use the GitHub API to fetch the README contents, and then also some dependencies to make sure that it's relevant to your use case, and the images, if any. For YouTube, we use Gemini 2.0 to generate a summary of the video, so we don't have to use some YouTube to text transcript package. We can just send the video right to Gemini, it'll generate a summary, and then we can also use the YouTube API to extract the thumbnail. And then for tweets, we have another subgraph, and this is because you want to get the tweet content, but then also extract any links in the tweet. And that's because you could have some tweets saying, hey, this is super cool, check this out, and then there's a link, and you wouldn't want to be generating your post and validating your post based on just the content of the tweet, but you want to also examine what the tweet is referencing. So we get the tweet content, we then extract any URLs, and for those we use the same verify GitHub, YouTube, and general nodes that we did to verify the links that were in the tweet. So GitHub, YouTube, general content works the exact same as before, and then once we've done that, we validate the tweet, which is just saying, okay, given this content and given the page content of the URLs, is it actually relevant for our use case? And this is a prompt that you can customize. So once you've validated and verified that all the links you've sent in are relevant, we're going to go to the general content report. Of course, if they're not relevant, it's just going to end. The generate content report node takes in the page content or the YouTube summary or the README from the link that was sent before, and it generates a marketing report, that's what we call it, based on that content. And we do that before generating the post because we don't want to be sending the LLM just the raw page content and saying, hey, I want you to take this unstructured raw data and generate me a nice tweet based on that, because it doesn't work very well. So what we do is we have this pass-through node, which takes the raw data, it extracts the relevant parts of it, and then it generates a nicely formatted marketing report based on that content, and then we use the nicely formatted marketing report to generate the actual post. After generating the post, if it is longer than 280 characters after removing the URL, then we call this condensed post node. If it's shorter than 280 characters, we go right to the human node. Or if you're using the full setup mode, the find images subgraph, which we'll discuss in just a second. If it is longer than 280 characters, we call the condensed post node, and this can call itself up to 3 times if it is not able to get the post under 280 characters. And what this does is it just says, hey, here's this marketing report, here's the original post, it's too long, please rewrite it to be slightly more condensed and under 280 characters. Now, once we've done that, if you're using the full setup, then it'll call the find images subgraph. This has 3 nodes: find images, validate images, and re-rank images. Find images is going to do 2 things. One, if it's not a YouTube video, it's going to take a screenshot of the page. For GitHub repos, it has some custom screenshot logic to only screenshot the exact README. For everything else, it's just going to take one big screenshot. And of course, for YouTube videos, we use the thumbnail. Then it takes all the page content and whether that be Markdown or HTML, it runs it through the script, which tries to extract any links from that content. Once it's gotten all the URLs to the links, it then passes that to the validate images node. We do not pass the thumbnail or screenshot to this node because we know it's going to be at least somewhat relevant. And then this validate images node just takes in all the links which are found on the page, and it passes them to Gemini 2.0, and it says, hey, given this post and marketing report, are these images relevant? Explain your reasoning, and then explain which, or then list out which images are relevant. And we do this because let's say you have a blog post, you scrape that page, and the blog post has comments, and these commenters can have profile photos. We're going to be extracting the links to those profile photos from the raw page content, and we don't want to include those in the human node when we interrupt, because those are just going to be useless to the user because they're clearly not going to want to post that in their final post. So this is used as a node to kind of filter those out and make the end experience for the user a little bit better. Next, we call the re-rank images node. This takes the images that were valid and it re-ranks them from most relevant to least relevant, and that's the order that we show them in the Agent Inbox UI, so that the user using this can have the most relevant images up top, and they don't need to scroll or search through the images to find the relevant ones, and it just makes the overall user experience a little bit better. Once you've done that, we call the human node. This node is what interrupts and actually triggers the inbox item in the Agent Inbox. And then from here, it processes responding, editing, or accepting nodes. So if you respond to it, it calls an LLM and it says, hey, does the user either want to rewrite the post, update the scheduled date, or is this an unknown action? Based on the LLM response, it will either update the description saying unknown action, or it'll route to the update scheduled date node, the rewrite post node, or then call itself. After that, it goes back to the human node where it interrupts and awaits for the user's feedback again. Once you have approved the post or accepted it or edited it and submitted it, it then goes to the schedule post node. This will do two things. If you used a priority level for the date, this is where it actually goes and finds the nearest date for that priority level that's available and then updates the store to then save that date so it's not used again. And then it calls a second graph to actually schedule the post. The way we schedule the post is we're able to use the after seconds parameter in the LangGraph SDK when we invoke our graph, and that is the upload post graph. And essentially what we do is we take the schedule date, the current date, we subtract them and get the difference in seconds, and then we can pass that to the after seconds parameter, and that will essentially not call the invocation, the run, until that many seconds has passed. So if we have it scheduled and like we saw in my examples for 2 minutes, then it'll be 120 seconds delay, but it could be days, weeks, months, and it will just wait until that time is there, and then it will actually call the graph, the upload post graph. Very simple, just uploads the post to Twitter and LinkedIn. And then also if you follow the full setup guide, we have a Slack integration where you can optionally customize it to send you messages in Slack saying, hey, this post was scheduled, and that's called after you submit the graph, and then actually when you upload them, it'll say, hey, this post was uploaded, or if it fails, it says, hey, this post failed to upload. The second to last graph I want to look at is the ingest data node graph. What this does is we use this to set up a cron job, which is tied to a Slack channel. And in this Slack channel, anytime we see some relevant content or a link to something which we might want to write a tweet on, we just grab the link, send it to the Slack channel, and then there's a cron job set up where once every 24 hours, it goes and ingests the last 24 hours worth of messages from that Slack channel, and then calls a generate post graph for each of those messages. And that way, we can asynchronously find these links, send them to the Slack channel, it'll then generate the post for them, but we don't have to do it all at once because it just happens once every 24 hours. Now, the last graph I want to talk about is the reflection graph. Very simple graph. Essentially, it's called every time that you call the rewrite post node, and it takes the original post, your request, and the rewritten post, and it passes it to an LLM, and it says, hey, the user requests some changes to be made. Do you think we need to write a new rule based on that user's request? They don't have to repeat themselves in the future. It then writes that rule and updates the store, and then every time the generate post, condense post, or rewrite post node is called, we automatically inject all of those rules. So let's say the post is generated and it includes a bunch of hashtags and you don't want hashtags. You would respond, you'd say remove the hashtags, and then this reflection node would examine the original, the updated post, and your response, and it would say, okay, I think the user does not want hashtags in their post, so it's going to add a new rule saying don't include hashtags in the post, and then every post after that which is generated, it's going to have that rule in the prompt so the LLM will not do that, and it can learn from your feedback to generate more customizable posts for your use case. So that's how you set up the agent inbox locally. That is exactly how it's built and why we chose certain things. I hope you all enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you guys using it soon.